Our intelligence community has seen President Xi of China saying by 2027 he wants his military prepared to seize Taiwan. Probably just as important right now is that if Putin continues to be bogged down in this war in Ukraine, that sends a very strong message to Beijing. My point is not that it will tell them not to do it, but how and when they do it, I think, can be tempered, can be slowed down by what the Ukrainian people are showing, when statistically I can give you 100 reasons why Ukraine should have collapsed by now.
First of all, thank you very much for accepting our invitation to share your thoughts. It's a great honor and privilege for us to be able to share your thoughts today. I think today is very special because we have about 100 Korea Military Academy students out there. I don't know if you can see them, but it's a great treat for retired generals like yourself and I. I've been asked to inquire a couple of questions towards you, and the first is about U.S. capabilities. Now, there's no doubt that the United States has the most capable military in the world. But having said that, the U.S. military dominance plays a great role. How long do you think you will be able to maintain this dominance within the Indo-Pacific arena?
Well, General Chun, good morning to you and your cadets, sir. It's a great pleasure to join you right now. As we mentioned earlier, I first visited Korea in 1972 as a young officer. And over the years, we in the United States, and especially many of us in the military, have been very proud to watch Korea grow into the nation that it is today. But you bring up a very good question at this point in time, because the United States military does enjoy a degree of dominance at this time. And the role of the U.S. military is to help effect a free and open Indo-Pacific, something that all of our nations, including Korea and the United States and other Indo-Pacific nations, depend on for our economic lifeblood. We need a stable, free, and open Pacific, and that's the point of U.S. military dominance. So you ask a very relevant question: how long can we maintain it? We know what the elephant in the room is, and that is China has been and continues to dramatically expand its military capabilities. But as you also know, General, from your decades of service, democracies don't stand still. And we are continuing in the Indo-Pacific and all the way into Europe, continuing to work with our allies. Plus, we're taking a lot of steps ourselves unilaterally. For example, despite what's going on in the Ukraine right now, our military and our Department of Defense considers the Indo-Pacific to be the priority theater. You know, when we set priorities in the military, they benefit from being the priority. So I think that as we look at China as a pacing challenge, at the same time, as you look at what we are doing to maintain the dominance, and it has eroded some, China is improving, we all know that. But I think that at this point, when you look at what happened at Camp David, so you see the ROK, Japan, US collaboration growing stronger, the dialogue, the exchange of information, the sharing of data getting stronger. What you're watching is history's altruism. History teaches us that nations with allies thrive and nations without allies wither. And so the United States, besides its unilateral efforts on technical improvement, organizational change, taking lessons learned from the ongoing war in Ukraine, as you watch what's going on, you see our leaders are also willing to do what is necessary to protect our populations, even when it's not popular in some ways. This is the role of a leader, to do what is required, not simply do what is popular. So the US military, in alliance with the ROK military, are the key reason why in DPRK they have not yet attacked into the south. They have made all the threats, but they have not carried out those threats yet. And I think the visit of the US submarine to Busan was a very public statement about how strong we are, and democracies are stronger together. And so you see a number of things going on. You see more of the NATO navies now being represented in the Pacific, United Kingdom, France, Germany, Netherlands. So you see other nations coming in to try to maintain the stability. The message I'm sending, General Chun, is we are not alone. We are together, we are stronger together. And the United States, if there's, we've got a lot of political disagreements going on. And I'm talking to you this evening here in Washington, from Washington, D.C. But if there's one area where there's no disagreement between Republicans and Democrats, it's on the need for stability in the Indo-Pacific and the commitment to the alliance. That is not something that you find only in one of the political parties. You find the majority of both parties aligned on this. So I think we can maintain the dominance going forward, and especially as we see us reaching out. For example, you know of our history with North Vietnam, with Vietnam, and you see us actually increasing our collaboration with a country that wasn't completely popular here in America, but more and more Americans understand this is what it takes to maintain peace in our time. So I'm optimistic right now that militarily, your nation, our nation, other nations will back up the diplomats to help keep peace.
Sir, thank you very much for acknowledging the alliance. I, as a former Korean officer, am very proud of the fact that we Koreans have been with the United States ever since our establishment. In Vietnam, we were with the United States for 7.5 years, and in every major war, the Koreans have been side by side with the United States. And to be fair, the US presence on the Korean Peninsula has enabled the Korean people to achieve economic development and democratic political development as well. So thank you again. Going back to our mutual challenge, which is undoubtedly China, there are fears and questions about how likely the Chinese might actually invade Taiwan. What is your thought on this?
Well, we watch closely the indications and warnings. You and I, between us, have 8 decades of protecting our people and our democracies from those who feel threatened by freedom. And as we watch what's going on with Taiwan, we sometimes sit back and take a very large view. For example, we are concerned even this week with this invitation by Russia to DPRK and China to have naval drills, joint naval drills. I mean, why do they need those right now if they have no offensive ideas in mind? So we look at this and we never dismiss the potential. And certainly Taiwan, which you rightly direct your question to, is probably one of those places that is most at risk. In fact, the Japanese Prime Minister many months ago said the next Ukraine-type situation could be over Taiwan. And it's a reality that we live with. Our intelligence community has seen President Xi of China saying by 2027 he wants his military prepared to seize Taiwan. Now that's no easy target. As you and I both know, amphibious operations are very, very risky. And just as a person who sailed through the Taiwan Straits, that is 110 miles of very bad water. That is a rough area. And I think that readiness to do this is only one part of the equation for a Chinese decision to go. I think probably just as important right now is that if Putin continues to be bogged down in this war in Ukraine, that sends a very strong message to Beijing. My point is not that it will tell them not to do it, but how and when they do it, I think, can be tempered, can be slowed down by what the Ukrainian people are showing, when statistically I can give you 100 reasons why Ukraine should have collapsed by now. So the uncertainty of war, something you and I dealt with throughout our lives, the unpredictability, the fundamental unpredictability of war, I think is again a reason not for the war to happen. I don't think China wants a war right now. I know that we don't, are okay in the United States. We don't want one, and nor does Japan or Vietnam or Philippines or anyone else, and certainly not the people in Taiwan. But the readiness of the Chinese military does not take into account the economic disaster that will befall the world and China too if a war breaks out in the Taiwan Straits. I think too, if there's something that worries me, it is the lack of some of the philosophical discussions that you and I saw between Washington and Moscow during the Cold War. And during those philosophical discussions, we were eventually able to find ways to work around incidents at sea, found ways to reduce the number of nuclear weapons, even when there was a lot of disagreements, as you know, between the USSR and the United States and NATO. And so I think we also need to see a more, well, let's just say a stronger diplomatic effort as we try to reduce the potential for war. Right now, we are certainly dominant and we can stop it, and they don't have any plans, I think, in the near term. But we have to look to the future, and I think that's where being stronger together, you see the Quad forming between Japan, India, Australia, the United States. We all work on an ASEAN centrality to try to handle problems in the South China Sea. We also see AUKUS, where the United Kingdom, Australia, the United States are working a submarine program. All of these things, I think, contribute to delaying any possible invasion of Taiwan. But probably the strongest thing right now, General Chun, is that Russia be defeated in trying to subvert the democracy next door in Ukraine. They cannot be successful there, and I think if they're unsuccessful, that will slow any march toward war in the Taiwan Straits.
Sir, I think a lot of Koreans wonder why we need to get involved in a war in Europe. I think your last comment just highlighted one of the key reasons that it's not just humanitarian, but it's a direct reason that the Koreans need to be interested in what happens in the Ukraine, because if the dictatorships, if the strongman gets his way over there, it will be a direct threat. We will be next. So I think you highlighted a good aspect of the interrelations between the world.
I would just add, General Chun, when you see the president of Russia meeting with Kim in Vladivostok and showing him aircraft factories in exchange apparently for artillery ammunition, when you see an invitation to the North Koreans and the Chinese to do naval drills with the Russian Navy, what we're seeing really is the authoritarian wanting to have veto authority over other nations, specifically democracies. like Ukraine, like Republic of Korea, like Taiwan. And if we say we can look the other way on one, what makes the authoritarians think we won't look the other way on another? We saw President Putin seize 2 provinces of Georgia in 2008. We saw him seize Crimea in 2014. Neither time did the democracies meet those attacks with any strong response, economic, diplomatic, whatever. And so he thought he'd go one more step. And this is something that the Swedish people, a democracy that stayed neutral for 200 years, that had not been part of a military alliance since Napoleon's time, and now today they suddenly swung, and as a democracy they voted to join NATO, knowing neutrality will no longer buy them their nation's freedom when they're up against a man who thinks like Putin, or Putin and President Xi, who have signed a partnership without limits. Just reinforcing the point that you just made, General Chun.
Hey, sir, really appreciate you reminding us of how the world is interconnected and how important we all are as an alliance.